Moving on now to our item 7, which is the parish share consultation. Now, I know that many of you will have been involved in the recent parish share consultation. I think there was a very strong engagement with that, which is really good. And I'm going to hand over to Elizabeth Harvey, who's going to give us some feedback on that survey and give us some indication of what's going to happen now, the next steps. So Elizabeth, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gillian. I think Nigel was going to start us off, so I'll hand over to Nigel first. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Elizabeth, and indeed, Gillian. Just a couple of points from me, really, because we are very short of time. But clearly, one of the key commitments that we have given to the parishes is a review of fairer share, which was originally delayed by COVID. And this review is very much part of that, this consultation. And we're examining the key principles of the existing share system. And delighted and grateful, as Gillian said, for the high level of engagement from parishes, which I think to date is over 72%. Apologies on two fronts. One is for the lack of papers in advance of today, and that is because we have given parishes until the end of January in order to respond, and in order to give them that maximum amount of time to respond, we haven't actually had time to prepare and send the papers out in advance. No matter, because you will get a copy of the slides today and an accompanying paper next week. We also don't have a huge amount of time today for questions and input, and what I would say there is that, as you'll discover in a moment, this is going to be an ongoing process of dialogue, and there will be plenty of opportunity for parishes to provide further input in due course. So today we're going to hear the feedback received and the next steps which are being proposed by the Fairer Share Review Group, but they are, I would say, still subject to discussion and sign-off by both Finance Committee next week and Bishops' Council next month. Elizabeth and the parish support team have facilitated this survey, and I'm hugely grateful, particularly to Elizabeth, for all the work she's put in, both in designing the survey originally and reviewing the very significant amount of feedback which has been received in preparation for today. So thank you, Elizabeth, and over to you.
Thank you, Nigel. I'm just going to share my screen. So like Nigel's already said, I just want to start by saying thank you to the 313 PCCs that participated in that survey. And that's a 72% participation rate. And just
we can't see your screen, Elizabeth.
Oh.
Yes,
right.
We can.
Can you see it?
No, still can't see anything. Oh, lovely snowy landscape.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we're good.
Some hands.
Thank you.
Okay. So 72% of our parishes participated in the survey. We received a huge amount of additional feedback, and just a sincere thank you for that. Some of it was really comprehensive and considered, and some really good suggestions which we'll take forward. So just a reminder then that this survey was about your views on the current system and what is working and what is not working. We didn't include any options and alternatives at this stage, as we are going to explore that next. The first set of questions was all around the core principle of membership. And there remains a really strong support for membership, but how we define and therefore count membership, there's a whole range of views on that. Certainly the current way we do it is not considered to be fit for purpose. Parishes feels it's open to interpretation. It's a very cumbersome process and would welcome clearer guidance. The other thing that came up in the survey is that parishes would like us to review the 3-year rolling average, the so-called smoothing effect. as this will accord too much weight to the pre-pandemic figures. The second part of the survey questioned around the core principle of relative affluence, and parishes do see supporting each other as part of living out our faith and responding to a generous God. But there was a lot of questions around what is reasonable and what do we mean when we say to give a little more. Most parishes did not support the current way we assess relative affluence and feel it's far too subjective. And therefore, should we continue this in some shape or form going forward, it needs to be done in a transparent and objective way. The last question of the survey was around adjusting for ministry provision. And it's really evident from the feedback that modification for ministry provision is not widely understood. And there's a whole range of issues when we link share to ministry provision. And some of the things mentioned through the feedback was that where there's a need for ministry, that doesn't necessarily mean there's an ability to pay. Others cited the geographical realities for our rural beneficiaries that include many churches that could be spread over quite a wide area. And also, how do we consider other ministry resources that might be available, like the retired and self-supporting clergy and the lay leaders? So this slide provides you with the findings of the survey, but I'd just like to read a handful of PCC comments that will give you some further context and an idea of the type of feedback we've received. So a PCC said, a system that's heavily weighted towards membership numbers is seen as a tax on growth. Another said, the church should not be seeking to means test its supporters. There was also quite a number of comments around membership and assumed affluence of parishioners does not equate with means or the willingness to donate. And then from a rural parish that was commenting on the adjustment of ministry provision, they made the comment, as a benefice which includes a number of churches spread over a wide rural area, we need more clergy than would be the case in an urban benefice. We should not be penalised because our clergy to support ratio is higher than elsewhere. And lastly, a comment that said, if the church aspires to remain present in these places, it must find sustainable and fair mechanisms to fund the ministry without penalising the faithful few who labour there. So what does this mean then, and where next? Like Nigel said, the Fair Share Review Group has reviewed the results and the feedback from the parishes and will be putting the following recommendation to Bishop's Council. And that is that we continue with this scheme in 2023, but with some tweaks, and that we have a wider changes or a new system in 2024. And the reasons for this being that we need to manage the expectation of change. The change in the system or the allocation to parishes does not actually address the fundamental issue that the diocesan budget, which is mainly the cost of ministry provision, is fixed and not very variable. Also, it is important that our share reflects ministry and mission provision, and with the bishop designate arriving later this year, we need to leave space to align the share system with any changes that might be upcoming. And also, we want to leave sufficient time to explore the different options and alternatives available and the impacts of these in the next stage of consultation. So here is the proposed tweaks to 2023 scheme then that the Fair Share Review Group is putting forward to Bishop's Council. That there is a membership count for the 5 weeks in May. that we change the smoothing effect, so that's the 3-year rolling average, to a 2-year figure based on pre and post-pandemic account. That we will assist parishes with relative affluence by making socio-economic indices available. And finally, we're going to provide some more information to help parishes with the modification adjustment. So what next then? As we've already said, we'd like to move to the exploring options and alternatives. And we want to do this well and leave plenty of time for PCCs and deanery synods to have discussions, to raise questions, and to share your views between now and the summer. So next week, through working together and email, we will share this presentation as well as a copy of the recording with you, as well as a digest. And this digest will include feedback that the parishes has provided us through the survey results, and some of the suggestions that's come forward, which are really good. And in addition, it will provide some information around what share pays for and the diocesan budget, because those were some of the questions that PCCs asked as well. We're going to refresh the work we've done on the share schemes that are used by other dioceses, and we'll also make that available to you. By May, we would like to do a series of focus group discussions. And so if you or any of your PCC members are interested, can you please let myself or Liz Ashmead know? And then by June of this year, we would like to invite PCCs to participate in a follow-on survey, which then particularly gathers views and opinions on the options and alternatives we've explored. So as mentioned, Fair Share Review Group has suggested that we launch wider changes or a new scheme in 2024. And so what we're working towards is that a decision is made in June of 2023, so the middle of next year, leaving us with sufficient time to then get ready for the new scheme and provide parishes with resources and support. Thank you very much, and I will hand back to Nigel.
Elizabeth, thank you very much indeed. We've got 5 minutes left, so there is an opportunity for questions and comments. Not sure that I can see any. Stuart and then Neil.
Thank you, Nigel. It seems to me from the discussions that we've had here at our sort of area, local level, it's maybe the key is going to be the defining of what is a member. You know, because the feeling is that it's the 20, how can 25 people that are your regular congregation support £1,000 a week bill? You know, that seemed to be the key from our end of the galaxy.
Thank you, Stuart. Neil.
Thank you, Nigel. First of all, I want to say thank you to you and the DBS team, because it's not been an easy couple of years with COVID. We've seen that with the governments. And so centrally, you've done as much as you can at the moment in trying to strip out some of the costs, which is good for the rest of us at the lower level trying to feed into that. And also the information that's been passed through, which maybe some of us haven't passed on so well to our PCC yet, has been really good in explaining what it costs for a member of clergy and those costs that have been broken down into that. The thing that concerns me is we'll always be stretching the budget as we move forward, because I'm not sure if the overall system by the Church of England is fit for purpose. It costs too much to run. And therefore, I think at a local level, we have to think strategically, how do we raise the money, not from the number of people we got, but how do we raise the money to support the clergy person or people because at the end of the day, if you don't pay, you don't get. It's as simple as that. And we're reaching that point. We've gone past the point of no return now. And I think at the local level, we have to take responsibility as the laity alongside the clergy to actually say, what do we want and what can we afford and what can we raise in the process? Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We've got 3 more questions. So we'll take from Pip first, then Judy, and then Virginia, and then I'll round it off. Pip,
Not specifically to be answered now, but for consideration. A really major stumbling block we come up against, both in my parish and in the wider benefice, is the perception that the Church of England nationally is a rich organisation with a huge amount of funds, and why can't they help?
Thank you, Judy. Pip, please.
Yes, thank you for the, I've been grateful for the process of review, because it's prompted questions and thinking. And I think the 2 things that have arisen for me, which I hadn't fully appreciated before, is that the present system, I think, actually subsidises or is biased towards the richer and more prosperous parishes, despite the fact that I think we might sometimes feel we are subsidising others. Modification scheme seems to me to do that, and it's kind of evidence of that, really. By talking to various clergy, I discovered that I think in some of the parishes, more prosperous ones, diocesan share probably comes to about 40 or 50% of turnover. Most parishes like mine, it's 75-80%, I think. And in rural benefices, it's very often 90 or 95% of their turnover has to go straight to diocesan share, leaving their many buildings and other challenges of mission on the remaining 5% of income. So that system to me those figures seem to me to suggest that something is imbalanced at the moment. And I don't think, therefore, I suspect most rich parishes don't actually believe that they are subsidising the others. I think to some extent it's the other way around.
Thank you very much. Virginia.
Can you reshare the screen where you showed the tweaks, please? I was trying to sort of digest it, but it went off too quickly.
Virginia, you will get a copy of the slides. So would you mind, because we are just running over time, would you mind if we circulate them rather than put them up again now?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Right. Debbie, you're just in before the curtain. Time for a quick.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what Pip said about the importance of looking at those particular churches or parishes where some deep discounts are given on the smoothing formula, and whether that's actually equitable and properly reflects the theology which underpins and ecclesiology which underpins the parish system. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think it's extraordinarily healthy exercise to be able to consult widely on this, and we're really encouraged by the degree of engagement that's happened so far. As you hear, that will continue. Sadness, I suppose, that it's going to take us a little bit longer than we'd originally envisaged in order to introduce a wholly new system, if that's ultimately what's decided. But we have heard absolutely what the key issues are from parishes at this point, and we'll reflect those in the tweaks implemented for 2023. I think Bishops' Council also, besides ultimately taking responsibility for the decision on the new system, needs to take account of what the principles of any new system will be, which we haven't yet done, but I would anticipate that within those there are some fairly obvious things, like having a very simple system, a transparent system that people can understand, a system which is capable of broad support by the majority of our parishes. And another important one is obviously not leading to an overall reduction in the fantastic share contribution that we've continued to receive even through the COVID period. So I think that's it from me, and I will hand back to Gillian.